Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 435. We have a first-time guest on tonight, so we'll introduce him in a minute, but we're going to do what we always do, go around the virtual room and introduce ourselves and any projects that we've got going on. You're on my channel, so that's where you can find me. Also on this YouTube channel, you can also find, if you go back in the archives, if you're into making comics, which we're going to be talking about a little bit today, you can check out my series, Making Comics 101. It is basically the most comprehensive free course on how to make comics that you'll find pretty much anywhere that I've come across. And it's right here on my YouTube channel. And more recently, what I'm doing is I am reinventing nostalgia from the past. I'm taking old stuff that for like Gen Xers remember and recreating it, figuring out how it works, but putting my own unique spin on it. I just did one where I kind of took the concept of Otter Pops, but I made them Slaughter Pops based on slasher movie villains, and I'm going to be coming out with a sequel to that soon, so just stay tuned for that. Other than that, on my website, circworks.com, you can find digital products that'll help you make comics. I have my comic book, Young and the Dead, a kids versus zombie adventure story. And then I've got some physical products that I create, namely my wax packs based on trading cards that we've never really got trading card packs from. So you can check out some of those. So that's all on my website. What about you, Corey?
Yeah, you can find my stuff at coreykerr.com, and I've got a couple new illustrations up where you can go to coreykerr.com/email. You're going to sign up for the email newsletter and kind of see the behind the scenes and the video essay that goes with that. And got a book out that I'm serializing as well, and that's also at coreykerr.com/email.
And you just put up a new video, yesterday?
A couple videos in the last few days,
Okay.
yeah. So the one about government surveillance, and then the other one,
Yeah, that was good too. Yeah.
yeah. So the other one where I animated Sean Tiffany's illustration. So it's kind of a little bit more boring if you're not deep into After Effects, but if you want to learn how to animate stuff, that's a good video for that.
Yeah, two very, very different videos.
Yeah.
All right. So our guest, Robert Radau, is he's a first-time guest, and he's got a Kickstarter, which we're going to get into. And we do have a link. He'll tell you about it, but we do have a link in the description of the video where you can check that out. Click on that. I've already backed it myself. So once you hear about it, I'm sure you'll probably want to do the same. So, Robert, how's it going?
Oh, it's going just great. Just swell. Couldn't be better. Everything's
Awesome.
great. I want to thank you guys for having me.
Of course,
Yeah,
you got
absolutely.
a pretty cool project. So when you shared it with me, I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool. And artwork looks great and everything. Definitely want to check it out. But you want to talk a little bit about that project? And like I said, there is a link in the description where they can find it on Kickstarter.
Cool. Well, let's see. A little backstory. 25 years ago or so, I had an idea for a one-page gag strip, and it's Elvis in all of his beefy regalia, cape and collar, and the dark glasses, and he walks into a big palatial office, and he says, "I want to buy all your drugs," and he slaps down some cash on the desk, and the guy goes, "Hey, all right," hands over a couple of bags of whatever. And Elvis whips off the glasses and he goes, "This is a bust." And the guy goes, "Oh my God, it's Elvis."
That's I mean, I know Elvis wasn't he deputized and everything? That sounds like something he would have wanted to probably do.
Yeah. So, I thought, well, maybe I could stretch that out somehow.
Yeah.
And you can't.
Right.
It's a one-page gag. So there it sat in my head for a decade. And then I had left comics for both as a reader and a hobbyist for years, and came back to it. I thought, well, what if I turned it around and didn't make it a joke? And approached it a little more seriously.
Yeah.
The drug epidemic. dealt with addiction a little more seriously, much more seriously.
Right.
And so I spent about a year and a half researching Elvis. I do want to make it clear that the character in the book is not Elvis Presley.
Right. Right.
I
mean,
do
and I
not
don't even
want any
know.
lawsuits.
Right. Well, yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, I'm not even sure if it falls under parody. I mean, I know people have done comics based on, a number of different celebrities, and I think there is some kind of a parody type thing that you can get around it. But sometimes it's just better to be safe and just come up with a new character.
Yeah, Mad Magazine pioneered that you
Right.
can't get sued for parody.
Yeah.
It paved the way for Saturday Night Live and all those others. But no, I learned, because I've always been an Elvis fan.
Hmm.
I did like a ridiculous amount of research, and I found out things I never knew before. And I found that if I just took reality and hung my story off that rod,
Right.
things started to fall into place that I could either alter, exaggerate, or just flat out change or add, and not having to make it Elvis
Right.
gave me a lot more freedom too. And that is going to sound gushy. I mean, I love Elvis,
Okay.
and I find that he's treated as a joke, and that doesn't.
Well,
hurt.
I guess
It doesn't
it
hurt
kind
my
of
feelings.
depends.
It doesn't bother. It doesn't hurt my feelings. Bubba Hotep's one of my favorite movies. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but this is handling him with, hopefully, with dignity and just handling everybody with a little bit of human respect and
Yeah. So I mean,
compassion and understanding.
so it's Devil in Disguise, correct? That's the
Yeah.
comic. Yeah, yeah. So obviously a reference to a Elvis song, and so let us know a little more about. I mean, what's kind of just like a elevator pitch, an Elvis elevator pitch about the comic.
Jeez.
That was a stretch.
So in 1972, President Richard Nixon presents Elvis with an honorary DEA badge.
Right, right.
But what if in an alternate universe there was someone very similar to Elvis who actually was an agent for an undercover agent for the Drug Enforcement Agency?
So it's basically, it's a rockabilly crime noir type drama, action adventure.
There is romance. There is comedy. Hopefully there's comedy. I think it's fun. But comedy is subjective.
Yeah.
There is martial arts. There is, on Spotify, there's a soundtrack.
Cool. Now you had mentioned that you have a background in music, right? And you played in bands and things like that. So
Yeah.
Are you doing the soundtrack yourself, I assume?
We have a video with an animated comic on the Kickstarter,
Yeah.
and that music actually is my band,
Okay. Cool. Awesome.
the Murder Mountain Boys.
And you do like rockabilly style music and everything.
The band broke up a couple of years ago,
Right.
but for 20 years we were doing like 40s and 50s hillbillies and rockabilly,
cool.
bluegrass, and like I come out of the punk generation,
Uh-huh.
so a lot of us old punks started to turn to country and rockabilly.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, to me, like, because Social Distortion they've kind of sort of got kind of a rockabilly, a lot of their stuff too,
Well, if you remember the band X,
Yeah.
yeah, they have a splinter band called the Knitters where they do all
Okay.
acoustic folk and country stuff.
That's cool. Yeah.
And John Doe from X has done a lot of country stuff,
So,
including co-starring in Great Balls of Fire, a train wreck of a movie about Jerry Lee Lewis.
Oh yeah, man. That's. I haven't seen that movie since probably I was a kid, and I didn't.
I can't find it anymore. No one
Yeah,
streams it. You can't get it on disc. You can't buy or rent it anywhere.
really, you can't find it on disc. That
No,
usually that's the one place where you can find some of these things that you can't rent.
I haven't been able to find it.
Really?
I've really looked.
Huh? 'Cause that was pretty big back in the day. I remember that being
Yeah.
a yeah. All right, so I do kind of want to go. You have sort of an interesting history, and the basically the topic of tonight's show is kind of rediscovering art later in life. So uh, when you were younger, you went to the Joe Kubert School, right?
Yeah.
And then so I guess we'll kind of start there. I mean, where you went there for I assume some art and writing or comics in general, and then but just kind of I guess take us back to then and going there and kind of what happened there, and maybe and then we'll circle back around to how you kind of return to comics.
Well, when I was in high school, I had kind of two career paths. One was to go into the ministry, and the other one was to go into comic books.
Those two
So,
very different career paths. Yeah. Although I guess you can combine them both.
not if you remember those little Christian tracts they used to
Oh, the
hand
chick
out.
tracks, the chick tracks. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
So
I wasn't
I could
necessarily
have done
thinking that.
both.
That's one way to go, but
I
yeah, I
could have
mean,
done
there's
both. I still could.
yeah,
But I chose the Kubert School,
yeah,
and the timing was, as far as the instructors were, timing was great because all the founding instructors were still there. So Joe
oh,
Kubert,
awesome.
Erwin Hazen, uh, he was doing the Popeye Daily Strip until he was 98 years old.
Wow.
Wow.
You said this was like 85?
85.
85. Okay, cool.
And there was a animation instructor there, Milt Neal. He worked for Disney in the 40s and 50s. He designed some of the secondary and tertiary characters and stuff like Dumbo.
Uh-huh.
And Tex Blaisdell, who ghosted and then took over the Little Orphan Annie strip. I mean, he's done everything. Horror comics in the 50s.
Yeah.
And he was just hilarious. All those guys. Um, and Jose Delbo, who was a sweet guy. But I couldn't see myself hacking it in a career at that. I was 18 and I was really intimidated by the other students, particularly all my friends who were a year ahead of me.
Yeah.
Some I still have in contact with. So I left. I left my first year.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah, that's unfortunate that I mean, you would think that they would hopefully, encourage people to kind of continue on and, because obviously, I mean, you're there to learn and the people that are ahead of you are, I mean, definitely could be, looked up to mentors and things because, I mean, everyone's got to start somewhere. So, but
the thing, you got to look at it in a historical setting, though. It's 1985.
right. Yeah.
So you either work for Marvel, DC, or Archie.
True.
All those stuff like Eclipse and Pacific Comics and First Comics were around, but a lot of that was
Yeah.
taken up by guys who were already established and then left the
But that was
majors.
sort of also the almost the indie boom, I mean,
Yeah, it was right before the
that's
black
right
and
around
white.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all the black and white. Yeah, I mean, so there's
Yeah, right
definitely,
before that.
yeah, definitely a lot, especially even people paving the way for self-publishing and then like you said, Pacific Comics and a lot of smaller comic companies like First, Kamiko, who else? Eclipse, like I think you mentioned Eclipse, but yeah, there's definitely opportunities. I think other than just Marvel and DC. Um, yeah, so
And
yeah,
nowadays,
yeah, there's just
I'm here pitching something that I'm basically selling through glorified mail order.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
not,
exactly.
not to knock
Yeah,
Kickstarter, but it is a world of availability that wasn't around in 5.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll add this too. Probably half the graduates at the Kubert School ended up working at Hallmark,
Oh,
Interesting.
moving,
Interesting.
moving to
Yeah.
Missouri to work in the factory of nothing but drawing tables, doing flowers and pictures of mother and whatever. So even the graduates weren't getting comic work.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah.
All the guys I hung out with at Kubert, none of them went into comics.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay.
Although one of them ended up a producer on The Simpsons. So, I mean,
So they didn't, especially with,
that's a pretty
yeah.
good gig.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. But I would think even with Joe Kubert still being there, and I don't know how I can't about how old were his sons at the time.
Oh, younger than me.
Yeah. Okay. So they probably weren't at the school
They
yet.
attended after I left. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. But I mean, I would just think that they would have some sort of, placement or something like that.
No,
But
it's not like it's not like it is now.
yeah.
Because also at the time they only taught illustration, animation, and
Mhm.
painting. And painting was a choice. You could decide to focus on that for your
Right.
but they didn't have script writing the way they do
Yeah.
now. And lettering was still hand lettering.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Now that
Yeah.
now they have Michael Krager's in charge of the alumni. Well, you mentioned job placement.
Yeah.
He's what would be the word, concierge? Maybe is that too
Uh-huh.
fancy a word? He helps find students work.
Okay.
And so
That's
if you
cool.
reach out to him at the school, and if you're looking for a letter, colorist, artist, you reach out to him, and he tries to hook people up,
Yeah.
which is not a service they had before.
Yeah, because I know for like me, that was at the time that was sort of the dream, and I mean, yeah, I mean at 18, I mean I guess that's yeah, so that would have been right, when I was 18, I just started taking after I graduated, I started taking pretty much every like community college art class that was offered anywhere. But I mean, if money wasn't an option or whatever, and if I was closer, probably I definitely would have wanted to like go to the Kubert School or something more like that. Yeah, and then I had a friend of mine back in the day who it was super nice of him because he went and just because this is a friend of mine and he knew I was into art or whatever, but he went and got all this information on the Art Institute and gave it to me and said, "Oh, you should check this out and everything." And as cool as that was for him to do that, I'm so glad I didn't because it would be the one thing I had going for me is that I had like zero debt because I would like I said I just started taking community art classes, which at the time were relatively inexpensive, um, and I was able to I mean I had been drawing at that point. I'd been drawing all my life pretty much since I was a kid, so but kind of hone your skills, point you in the right direction, and teach you some of the things that you don't learn just on your own. And from that, I was able to not necessarily go into comics, even though I tried to break in, but though I started doing art jobs and things like that. So, um, but there was definitely that dream of like Kubert School and seeing the ads in the back of the comics and like, oh, that'd be cool and everything. And, and we've had, I think our friend Gaz went there at least a year.
no, I didn't know
And
that.
yeah, I could be wrong, but I think he did. So,
That's cool.
I,
It's a brutal program. I mean,
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
So
I hear.
tell me a little bit of tell me a little bit about it. Like what when you say brutal, like is it critique or is it the amount of work or is it all the above or like what's that like? Because I've never been obviously, so I'm kind of curious.
Well, choose my words carefully here because I know what I mean, but if I use the wrong words, someone might not know what I meant. So after I'll fast forward just a second and then bring it all together. During COVID, I went back to the Kubert School for their online classes,
Mhm.
and it's a whole new generation of instructors. You know, because the other guys are either dead or
Right.
98. So I was older than I'm older than most of the instructors, some online, and so I can compare what the critiques and work was like as a full-time student in '85
Hmm.
versus an online 6-week course guide with the new instructors. It's apples and oranges. But in
Yeah.
'85 and still today, if you're a full-time student, there is no time to get a part-time job.
Okay.
You're working all day in class and all night at home, and that's 7 nights a week. Um, so if you're going expecting you'll be able to work a part-time job to help pay for groceries or whatever, art supplies,
Right.
um, that is not going to happen unless you're a special kind of someone.
Right.
Someone who doesn't sleep. And it's still the case now. Um, they do offer the program virtually now as a full-time student, which I thought about. Like, huh, oh wait, I still have a job,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so that's out. Um, but no, the workload is brutal. Um, the critiques were honest, so either you can take it or you can't.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So the brutality
And
of
not
that is the
everyone
brutality
can
of
at
that
that.
is subjective. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Not everyone can, especially at that age. Because I remember at that age, I just thought, not know any better, and just like everyone up until that point saying, "Oh, you're such a great artist," and this and that, and then you start actually having to turn in professional work, and then you kind of get a dose of reality. And at that point I thought, oh yeah, I'm just going to send out a bunch of submissions, and then Marvel's going to hire me or whatever. And that wasn't necessarily the case. And it is. And for me it was going to like San Diego Comic Convention and getting feedback or portfolio critiques, and getting hit with those honest critiques. And sometimes you're not 100% prepared for that at that age. So yeah, so that could be it could be, like you said, brutal.
yeah, I guess you probably equate it to, if you were the star quarterback at your high school team and
Right.
you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to be the best. And you find out you're like the 19th best
Yep.
just at that school.
Right.
So like, I guess humility comes in handy once in a while. But these are examples of why I left.
Yeah.
It
And
wasn't the
then
school,
so
it was me.
so after leaving, after leaving, I mean, did you just decide to? You said you went into like writing and music and stuff. I assume music was probably something you're already doing. Um,
No, no.
no, okay,
When I left the Kubert School, I actually moved to Buffalo to uh, enter the graphic design program.
okay, oh,
So
okay,
I didn't leave art.
okay, okay, great, okay.
I just thought that was more practical.
Yeah, now that I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. All right.
So then all my older friends who had recently graduated from the graphic design program that I got to know when I came up here were working in paper mills and art supply stores.
Uh-huh.
So like, oh, that doesn't really guarantee any kind of work either. So,
Yeah.
so I left that. And I
Okay.
became a restaurant worker for 8 years.
Uh-huh.
And that's when music started to
Okay. Okay.
get played and written. Um, and I started as a novice, and I kept the band together for 20 years.
Did you continue to be a fan of comics, or did you just
Yeah,
kind of put that aside and come back to it, or?
yeah, I did. Although and I'm going to choose my words carefully. I lost a lot of interest around the time that Image Comics started.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was
I'll just put it that way.
yeah, no, I definitely understand. Yeah, that was for a certain age group and everything. I think for me, that was there was I had stopped kind of collecting comics, and then just all this stuff started happening in the '90s, and I got back into it. And some of the stuff I liked, some of it I didn't. Some of the stuff that I didn't like, there were a lot of people that did like. But it was definitely a kind of a just a huge like boost to the comic book industry. I mean, stuff. I mean, it was there were artists and things for whether 100% deserved it based on the art or whatever, but they were basically it was like the Beatles in comics, and there was never anything like that before.
Yeah.
So it was a really unusual time to be into comics.
However,
But yeah,
if that wasn't your bag,
oh yeah, yeah,
then you've got Vertigo Comics over at DC
true,
running
true,
right at about the same time.
yeah, yeah,
So,
and I think
but I
kind of
wasn't reading superhero comics,
right, yeah, and
Right.
yeah, and still, I mean, I mean, I was reading some superhero stuff, but I mean, I had always, and still to this day, I mean, the one thing that I always tell people, because there's a lot of, you get a lot of people like have kind of make these blanket statements like, oh, just comics aren't good anymore or whatever. And I mean, like, well, what kind of comics are you reading? I mean, I mean, at least nowadays, I mean, the amount of diversity and different kinds of comics there are I mean, there's so many publishers, and if you can't find a comic that you like, and whether that's even like a throwback to the stuff that you used to like, there's people doing like taking like golden age stuff and doing stuff in that style, and no matter what you're into, as long if you especially now like with Kickstarter, I mean, like what you're doing, and I've done Kickstarters and things, and there's definitely, I mean, for whatever you're into, there's a comic out there. You just kind of dig for it. So, but I mean, there's really been, right now, whether it's debatable about as far as where the comics as an industry is as far as popularity and revenue and things like that. But there's way more comics out there. There's way more comic companies, I would say, than ever before. And then it also depends where you're looking. If you're looking at like young adult, like scholastic stuff, I mean, kids nowadays are finally. I mean, when I was a kid, if I if I brought a comic to read in like a reading class or something like that, or that was
Ooh.
like no. But now it's definitely encouraged, and I mean, so
You
there's
might as well
that,
wear
and
your
then
underpants on the outside and do that,
yeah,
Get the same reaction.
yeah, but that and like manga and I mean, just I mean,
It's
in some
validated.
ways, it's yeah,
Finally
exactly,
been
yeah,
validated.
yeah, yeah, or not even to mention like you know the entertainment industry and all the properties out there that are based on comics. I mean, it's crazy, really, but it's just so weird to be a comic fan and kind of see these different you know uh trajectories and things like that over time, like where comics are and where they're going, and who knows kind of what's next. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of, I mean, because the Image stuff was definitely a departure from what you know people were reading and collecting in like the Silver Bronze Age and stuff like that. So I could definitely see a huge turnoff for a lot of people, so
If you love comics and you don't like what's being put out now,
yeah.
then take the opportunity and go back and read 100 years worth of stuff.
Oh yeah, and you can do that on like, I think Corey's a little familiar with some of the platforms where you can read digital comics, where you could just basically get a whole archive of anything you ever wanted to read.
Go back and read the old Vern Hogarth Tarzans. Or what occurred to me today is I've never read a single Gasoline Alley comic strip, and yet it's always like up there on the top list of best.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that camp as well. Yeah. But Corey recently, what was the thing where you were ordering, like you ordered like all the wasn't it Creepy or Eerie or something like that?
Yeah.
Or
So like
yeah,
Humble Bundle,
Humble Bundle, right?
yeah, they'll come out with these packs of comics, or novels or video games or whatever. They have a couple different categories. But I mean, I've gotten all of Mignola's work. I've gotten all of Hickman's work. I've gotten all. I mean, they have these big packs where it's like you buy the pack and then you get them. I just got the entire IDW run on Ninja Turtles. I mean, it's crazy, and you can do it for 30 to $40 to do the whole thing, and they donate a significant portion of it to charity and stuff like that. So yeah, Humble Bundle is really good. Kobo is another one that I'm starting to see people use. People have kind of moved away from Comixology, just because I mean Amazon bought it, and then it's just gone downhill since then. And then I mean Substack. Not to read older comics, but there's a lot of webcomic artists, or comic artists that are serializing their book on Substack before they do a Kickstarter or before they do a print run. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to get, into the older stuff or the newer stuff, the digital is a really cost-effective way to do that.
Yeah, I got to get over my aversion to reading comics digitally.
Or Scott, one thing that you could do. I still prefer the books, but it's hard to beat, like spending $18 to get the entire run of of Ninja Turtles, and knowing that half of that is going to going to a charity that helps comic book artists,
Yeah,
or
and
something like that.
Other than I guess reprints, I mean, if you were to, there's no way you could possibly, probably most people could afford to actually go back and collect all those books.
Well, that's the other thing that I was going to say. Thrift books and Abe books are two excellent alternatives if you're like me and you don't want to feed the megalithic beast of Amazon. And they actually oftentimes are less expensive than Amazon, because Amazon pretends like they're still cheap. But yeah, if you do thrift books, they're used or library editions or whatever, and you can get great deals on out of print books or older things. I mean, I just picked up a Frazetta book that I don't think it's been in print for 20 years, and I picked it up for $15. I mean, there's some pretty decent things out there. So even if you still want to read them physically, I mean, I have, quite a few of these behind me are not brand new off the shelf. I'll buy them used, and it's a cost effective way of doing it.
Yeah, I just wrote that. I'm going to definitely check that out. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to derail the conversation, but I could talk about where to buy comics for a while.
I'm a huge supporter of the dollar bins.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I love
those are great.
through dollar bins and
Reading
seeing what you can find. Yeah. Although it seems like lately it is a lot of, I go through the dollar bins. It's just a lot of like 90s image stuff and stuff that they printed millions of copies of. But every once in a while,
Valiant.
Yeah.
A lot of Valiant.
Oh yeah, Valiant too. Yeah, a lot of stuff from the 90s. But yeah, every once in a while I'll dig through there and I'll find some good old Bronze Age Marvel stuff and everything. So, but yeah. My friend, I actually have a friend that owns this store, Ghost Comics, and he's got a pretty good dollar bin section. He's got all basically. I don't think he sells new comics there. I think it's all vintage stuff and everything. But I'll go to his shop and dig through some of his stuff. But anyway, so kind of back to what we were talking about. So yeah, I want to go a little deeper into, we kind of touched on the Kubert School, because it's really cool that you went to it back in the day and that you've returned. And then are you currently taking classes online at the Kubert School, or?
I think I've burned through almost all of them in the last.
You took all of so is it
years?
Is there still a physical Kubert School you can go to?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So there's that, and
a couple of the graduates already.
Okay. Cool. But then I guess from what you're saying is that they have just like online classes that you can take. Are those like
Yeah.
recorded classes, or is there an instructor? Or
Well, there's an instructor, and it's
okay,
usually one of the full-time instructors from the school.
okay,
They get
cool.
guest instructors. One of the first classes I took was with Dan DiDio,
Okay, okay,
former,
cool.
president of DC
Yeah,
during the New 52.
yeah, yeah.
And his course was on creating a story Bible.
Okay, that's cool.
So,
Yeah,
and
I've
then,
talked about that. Yeah,
and
on
then
this.
creating elevator pitches and things like
Uh-huh. Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That was a great class. He's not an instructor there. He just signed out to do the class.
Oh, cool.
The timing was great because it was just before he started this Frank Miller comics company project.
Okay. So
So
what?
the courses run for 6 weeks. It's
Okay.
an hour and a half each night. One night, well, it's 6 classes, one night a week. I have taken digital lettering, which
Okay.
was really difficult watching on my screen, watching the instructor on his screen, showing on the smaller screen where to move the cursor.
Right. Did you end up doing having taken that class, did you end up doing the lettering yourself on your comic, or did you?
I went back
hire
to hand lettering.
Oh, you did? Okay. Really? Yeah.
But I'm working on a humor strip. It's like set up like adult daily strip. So the hand lettering, that's a piece of cake.
Yeah, that is one of the things. That and coloring is one of the things that I don't know that I could ever go back to doing traditionally. Although I might want. There's kind of a hack where you find a decent hand lettering that looks similar to yours, and then you can kind of print it out like in blue line, and then kind of go over it hand letter. So, but my hand lettering is so bad. The digital lettering is just a godsend for me.
As I get older, my hands are not as steady. So
that too. I just watch
try to write short scripts.
Yeah,
I'm gonna letter it. But no, I've taken. They offer basic anatomy, narrative storytelling. So they'll give you a random script of like 5 to 7 pages. You draw it out during the 6 weeks. They critique it. Intro to narrative art. So they tell you, okay, well, this is the gutter between the panels, and you want to make sure that when you're drawing something, you don't have the hand cut off the panel,
right?
Because it looks like he's got amputated fingers,
Right. Yeah.
Basic stuff like that, and then more advanced things, traditional inking. I just took that was great. I got a lot out of that one.
Yeah,
Actually, might take that one again. I find that
I love
classes prompt me to do more work because I'm agonizingly slow at the drawing board.
Yeah,
which is why I do the page breakdowns. So
yeah,
I'm still.
I do want to call out. We've got a couple super chat. Or are these super chats here? Yeah. Here we go. Let me call these out. Let's see. Is this? It's funny because it's either got a lot of new viewers or
we're getting trolled, Scott.
Is that getting trolled? Okay, I figured that was. I'm like, this is like, are we on? Did we somehow bounce over to Twitch or something like this? Because it looks like these are all gamers. All right, so never mind. I will take that off.
Just ignore those.
Yeah. Okay.
But hey, thanks for the money, guys. Go ahead and keep hitting us with the cash.
Is it an actual super chat though, or is it just fake? I don't know.
Looks real. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, how do I? I gotta find that one so I can hide it. Okay.
Oh, I get it.
All right.
There you go.
Okay. Thanks. Oh, sorry about that.
I'm not even seeing any of that stuff.
Yeah. Just ignore it.
Yeah. All right.
So I'm curious after you went down the road of music and everything else, what what brought you back? Like, when did you say, "Hey, all of a sudden, I think I want to like come back and do this comics thing"?
Uh, let me pick my words carefully here. Uh, on a landmark birth date, um, I was kind of given a second chance at life, let's just put it that way. And I realized all the things I used to really love to do, I hadn't done for a decade. It's kind of like living in a cavern for a decade. You know, working, coming home, working, coming home. And I kind of spent a decade thinking, well, this is it for me. You know, this is the rest of my life. Like, this is it.
Hmm.
Um, and then something changed, and I just was refreshed. You know, I felt like I was 18 again, and I had the whole rest of my life in front of me again. So I went back to taking classes at the Kubert School, and started writing again. Started writing a lot. I wrote over 150 songs for the band over our tenure, and they're all kind of story songs. So even that, yeah, it's music, but they were narratives. A lot of murder ballads. A lot of murder.
Yeah.
Telling a whole story in 2 minutes. It's an exercise in brevity. But I found that I had a different attitude when I was 18, because when I was 18 at the Kubert School, I had to look at myself and go, I got to make a living at this. And
Right.
I'm not that good comparatively. And again, I'll choose my words carefully. At the time, if you wanted to go into comics, you had to be good. You had to
Right.
be competent. And at the very least, you had to be fast and meet the deadline. If the book's due in a month, it's due in a month. Nowadays, with Kickstarter or web comics, I mean, you're on your own schedule. There's really no pressure. And I don't want to insult anybody. There's a wider quality of work that is out there now. Put it that way. And I felt that I could produce that kind of quality work with some retraining. And I don't have to make my living at this. So all the pressure was off, and it was finally fun again. And because I was relaxed, I was able to produce a lot more with no stress involved in it.
Yeah.
And
So,
like when I dropped out of comics, Kickstarter wasn't around.
oh yeah, no, it's crazy
Digital
because
coloring wasn't around. Really.
yeah,
You know, you couldn't do this stuff on your own.
yeah. Our co-host who's not here, Josh, this before Kickstarter, there was the Xeric grant, which he was a recipient of, and I was initiated by Peter Laird, who co-creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the whole reason why they stopped that grant is because Kickstarter. I mean, now, because before there wasn't a way for like independent publishers to get funds to publish their own comic, but Kickstarter kind of, pardon the pun, kicked open those doors, and so it kind of leveled the playing field for anyone. As long as you can build the audience and get enough people interested, you could fund your own comic. So I mean, it's I mean, there's so many. I mean, talk about change in times and opportunities and things like that. There's so many ways. I mean, so many new ways that the people can produce their own comics and get the word out and everything. And it's still not. It doesn't make it easy, but it's definitely a lot more attainable. No, right. But it's just, it's just putting in time, and I mean, kind of like what we're doing here, doing videos and things, and let people know who we are, talking about our projects. talking with other people about their projects, getting the word out and everything like that. But that wasn't the case, back in, you know, 90s, early 2000s, 80s,
Now,
before
for all
that
you
even.
kids out there,
Yeah.
I know we're sounding like old codgers, but this is what it was like.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
You didn't have the opportunities you have now. So
Yeah.
I am now one of those kids.
Yeah. So how did you, you sort of came back to comics, rediscovered your love of comics, kind of brushed off some of the ideas that you were working on before, and created, Devil in Disguise. So how did that kind of happen, as far as getting back into it, and like, that, I guess, sort of time frame, like, oh, I've got these ideas, let me actually do a comic, and then, you know I guess, having to familiarize yourself with Kickstarter. I don't know if that is something that they talk about in the Kubert School as far as marketing, and did they talk a little bit about Kickstarter and how to actually market
Yeah,
your books?
that was one of the courses.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
The course was called uh, "Getting Your Comic from Your uh, Getting the Comic from Your Brain to the Bookshelf." And I thought, they're going to do this in like 9 hours. It didn't really have much of a course description, but that's exactly what it was. Um, Not explaining from square one. Okay, this is the writer, this is the artist, this is the color. But really, once you've assembled your book, and how to assemble a creative team, um, go on Facebook, find all these artists seeking comic writers websites and all the other, which is how I found my artist.
Yeah, I
There's
think
more.
if it's the same group that, yeah, I found a few artists, and colorists and things like that from probably the same group you're talking about,
Yeah.
like Writers and Artists Connect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've
There's
hired talent
writers
there
and
too.
there's comic book writers and artists connected, and then there's connecting comic book writers and artists, and then there's writers or comic book artists and writers. So there's like three variants. Of it.
Okay, yeah, I
One of
know 'em.
those. I'm
Yeah,
one of
I've
those.
only been on one of those, but yeah,
So my timing was perfect. It's like it was handed
yeah,
to me. He posts. He's living in Romania,
uh-huh,
and he posts, "I have the next month free. If anyone's looking for an artist."
yeah,
And I was the first and only one to respond. Like within 5 minutes of his post, I just happened to be up at 1 a.m.
right,
and he's an insomniac, so he was already up at 2 a.m. in Romania.
yeah,
And we clicked right away. And he liked the premise, and we chatted for a while, and I've had him locked in ever since.
awesome. The artwork looks
Since
great, by the way,
he was
too.
in Romania, he was waiting to move back into the Ukraine, which he did, which didn't seem like a great idea.
No,
But that's where he went, and
yeah,
he was there for quite a while, and then he moved back to Uruguay, which is where he's from. Now he's traveling up through South America. And
well, I read that he's
every
kind
time I
of
talk to him, he's somewhere else.
yeah, it said on his bio on your Kickstarter that he was kind of a nomad, so
Yeah,
yeah.
but I can always get a hold of him. And this is
Yeah,
something
well,
else you couldn't
that's
do in the
another great
1980s.
thing. Yeah, that's another great thing about today. I mean, really, you don't have to have like a home base. I mean, you get like a drawing tablet, like an iPad. I mean, you could create from anywhere. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, sometimes I have these ideas that, you know, if it wasn't for this, I mean, I do kind of like to have my studio and have my Cintiq and all the stuff that I work on. But I know so many people that's all they need is their iPad, and then they'll just go wherever. I've got to get a little more into that, but I would like to do more like traveling and like and be able to work more remotely and things like that. It's kind of a fantasy of mine as well. So,
I mean, he's able to do
but
this while he's on the plane. I mean,
yeah, oh yeah, I've totally drawn on the plane and worked on projects on the plane. Yeah,
so I'm
yeah,
sorry. So you asked me um, how or why I started redeveloping these.
yeah.
So I don't know if you guys are like this, but I really don't throw anything away.
I'm like that. I'm trying to be better about throwing, not necessarily my art, because I do, but and some people just toss their art and stuff away. But I believe in no matter how good it is or whatever, having it so you could, or at least keeping a scan or something of it so you could look back and see your progress.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, so
but
I've actually gone back and redrawn pages that I did
yeah,
2 years ago. And I'm like, oh, I can do this so much better.
yeah,
I mean, ultimately, it's just paper and pencil. I mean, how expensive is that to do?
right, yeah,
But
yeah,
I still had all these old story files, paper files, of all the stuff that I'd written down as ideas here and there. So that's where the Elvis thing came from. It was still
yeah.
just a handwritten note. Um, and these two other much longer series that I had written when I was in my early 20s. So I was still writing scripts even after I left the Kubert School. Um, and now I'm developing them. And this next series I hope to publish, I've already got 16 issues plotted out and
Wow.
10 of them already scripted. Series after that, I have no idea how long that's going to take, but it follows this about a 30-year, a 20-year time period in this one character's life. He ages and time passes.
Wow, that's cool.
But that could be as long as I want it to be. You know?
So are you planning on like what's the future of like Devil in Disguise? Is it just a couple issues? Because this is issue 2, right? Although I know I backed it and I don't have the first issue, so you can get the first issue, you can get both issues. But is that going to continue along with your other project, or will that end and then you start on a different project?
The artwork for issue 3, excuse me, is about 2/3 done.
Oh, cool.
Issue 4 is I'm going to start scripting that on
Okay.
Monday, but it's all plotted.
Oh, okay.
So I expect probably 4 issues, but I mean, you guys both write, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It sometimes gets longer than you intend.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. My book was my comic was originally just supposed to be like 8 pages, and it ended up being it's going to be 6 issues. So, yeah.
I have a friend of mine. We work on each other's. Well, we critique each other's scripts. We try to help each other out. And he pitched one idea. I said, "That's going to be great as 6 issues." He goes, "I was thinking 12." And I go, "Oh, I mean, if you can do it, yeah, but I think 6 would be." And I think he's up to issue 20.
Wow.
It's getting longer. So mine, I originally plotted it out as 5 issues, scaled it back to 4. But issue 4, I think, is the last one I want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll if I can end the story in issue 4, even if it ends up being 48 pages. Because in all honesty, I don't want to do a 5th Kickstarter around this one.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it.
It's exhausting.
It is. Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
is exhausting.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons. Like my book,
things like this make it worthwhile. This is the fun part of it.
right? But like I'm getting ready for my final issue to kickstart it, and I just decided, you know what? And rather than rushing it because there's so much prep and I've got so much other stuff going on, I kind of decided I think I'm gonna wait until March of next year when people are getting their taxes back and stuff, and that seems like a good time to launch it. And yeah.
Yeah,
So,
issue 4, I'm planning on early February after the holidays.
yeah.
People have paid off their Christmas credit cards and stuff.
Yep.
But issue 3 should be launching. Are we still in September?
Yeah.
Issue 3 should be launching in late October, early November.
Yeah.
And then I'll take the vacation time and then finish issue 4. I think when issue 3 is done, I'm going to start moving it around to publishers, see if they'd be interested in either serializing it or just putting out a trade. Get it on some bookshelves, get it under some some eyes.
Yeah.
The
So
Kickstarter
what?
thing is nice. You know, I see a lot of the campaigns like, hey, we raised $3,000. Like, it's fantastic. And there's
Yeah.
like 30 subscribers. So your comic's only getting into the hands of 30 people, you know, which you could do at a comic show if you just handed them out for free.
Well, yeah. The thing with Kickstarter you want to do is you want to raise enough money so beyond whatever Kickstarter backers you have, you pay for the additional comics that you take to a convention, so you're not out of pocket with those. And you know, and so I mean that's one of the things, because I just did a very small convention, and a lot of people when they'll go to conventions, they'll come back and they'll say, "Oh, I made this much money," and they're just talking about the money that they earned from the convention, but they're not taking into account. Sometimes they're not taking into account the travel, all that, and most of the times they're not taking into account what it costs for their materials and things. But when you have Kickstarter books that have been funded by Kickstarter, at least like, you know, for me, when I was calculating how much money I actually made, there's certain products I sold that, yeah, I had to pay for the materials, but with the comics, it's pure profit if you run a successful Kickstarter. So yeah, I mean that's the main thing. That, I mean, that's obviously you want to get the books out to everyone that backed it, but hopefully you raise enough money where you can print those extra books, and that's where you can continue to sell the books afterwards. So yeah.
So here's I don't want to be discouraging to all, you know, the kids out there, but if you're the writer and you're newer on Kickstarter, you're the one who's not getting paid.
Probably, yeah. I mean, yeah, because you gotta pay for the artists and everything too. So yeah, that's why. And me as a writer artist, that's one thing I don't. At least on my book, I mean, I do like company comics for companies and things where I'll hire artists and stuff, and definitely get those guys paid and everything. But for my own book, it's just, you know, anything that comes in for that, other than like we said, whatever it costs to, you know, I never even factor in the time it takes for me to draw something, because you know, it takes so long, and I probably never make my money back if I really think about it. But
yeah. So brings me back to this. All the pressure's off. I don't have to make my living at this.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because, you know, and I had thought about that too. Get to a point where, because I've got so many different ideas, and some of them, yeah, I want to draw myself, but there's a lot of ideas that it just, you know, getting older, there's that I don't have enough time to do all the ideas that I want to do. So actually just writing them and finding artists and stuff, that's something that I would like to do in the future, you know, hire some artists to realize some of these other ideas that I have that I might not get around to. But
I kind of equate this because my wife paints. And you know, when I was in school for graphic design, I obviously knew a lot of people in the fine arts department. My friends have always been artists and musicians, and you don't make a living at it.
Not always.
You don't, you know. So
Yeah.
if you're an artist, you know, maybe you make your living as an art teacher or a substitute teacher,
Right.
or you don't use these words anymore. Waiter and waitress, you know, servers.
Right.
If you're a writer, you work in a bookstore, or you work as an editor for what they used to call newspapers. You know.
Yeah.
So, whereas comics is viewed as commercial art, at least we did at the Kubert School. That's how it was treated, because you have a deadline and you have an obligation, you have a contract. That's commercial art.
Yeah.
Same with the writers. It's commercial work. Say as being a copywriter for an ad company or something. But if you're viewing it as artistic expression, making money on it should probably be your last expectation. Because if that's what's driving you, it'll drive you crazy.
It can, but honestly, I mean,
At first.
I've talked about this before. Is that, I mean, a lot of people, they've got a very narrow mindset as far as the opportunities available in comics, and that usually has to do with, well, Marvel, DC, but even beyond that, with the smaller companies. And then and then a lot of people, they just stop there. Whereas one of the things that I've been able to do is there's companies out there that want to get their message out. And what better way to get your message out than with comics? So that's a whole, there's opportunities you can create in comics that most people don't even realize that it's a possibility. So you just got to get a little creative, you got to hustle a little bit. And so there are other ways to make a living in comics that aren't necessarily what people, think of as comics. So, yeah.
When I was a kid, they used to hand out comic books in school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like from the lighting company.
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And maybe it's not as glamorous. Some creating like that, something isn't as glamorous as working on Spider-Man or something like that, but it beats digging a ditch.
They pay more.
Oh, they do. They definitely pay more.
Writers make.
Because when I hire artists to work on these comics, I pay them more than Marvel or DC pays per page rate. So, I mean, these companies have more money, and they see the value in it more than so. It's just yeah. I mean, again, but not everyone wants to do that kind of comic.
When I came back into this, I looked into like what page rates were, going for 4 or 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and one company, and they're a well-known, established, independent company. I heard their page rates like that's what it was in 1986.
Oh yeah.
You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And
yes, some of it is criminally low for the amount of work, and it's nuts.
Yeah,
and the amount of work that goes into the writing and drawing now is a lot more than it was.
If Marvel and DC artists, if Marvel and DC artists only got paid their page rate, I mean, it is not worth it. But the benefit to being an artist on a Marvel or DC title isn't that page rate, because it's nothing really when you think about it. It's building a name for yourself, being able to go to the show, do sketches, and having, because if you are on a book like a Marvel or DC book, you've got an instant audience, and once you have that, then you can do sketches, you can do sketch covers, you can do all kinds of stuff. That's where you can be successful as a Marvel DC artist. It isn't from the page rate that Marvel or DC's paying.
And if you work traditionally, you can sell the original pages.
Exactly. Yes. That I totally forgot to mention that, but that's probably one of the biggest things. Yeah.
One page is a mortgage payment now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It can be. Yeah.
But if I could, I realize I haven't really talked about the book that much.
Yeah. We've been trying to get you to talk about it, Robert. So now's your opportunity.
I do this every time. The last show I was on, the host spoke more about his book than he ever asked about mine.
No, go ahead. We want to hear about
it. So if you want to rewind this tape about 45 minutes.
So that's you when you know you're getting older like us. I still refer to tapes and things like that.
So it started as a one-page gag, and then I started treating it as a serious look at addiction in America and how it's treated, and how it's traditionally been treated, through derision and punishments and ostracization.
Yeah.
And finally now, it's viewed with, hopefully by most people, compassion and understanding. If not understanding, at least empathy. And that's, to be serious, that's the core, that's the soul of the story.
Yeah.
It's not just a gratuitous, hey, let's get these mob bosses. That's a big part of it. It's that's on the surface. So if you just flip through the book and go, hey, there's a lot of action in here. But if you really can read it, by the end of the story, you'll see a full arc of attitude and treatment, as expressed through 2 to 3 different characters. Don't want to give away the ending.
No, of course not.
But
so
because again, it's not Elvis. It's not Elvis. So,
yeah, well, let's talk about let's talk about your protagonist.
Like, I know how this story ends. He dies on the toilet.
What's the name of your protagonist, and what obviously based on Elvis, not Elvis, but what talk about your protagonist then.
Okay, so like I mentioned before, I grew out of the punk movement, and then you had bands like the Stray Cats come out.
Oh yeah, I remember loving the Stray Cats.
Called Punkabilly, like bands like the Long Riders and Jason and the Scorchers. And, I mean, that's what I grew into. And so if you love rockabilly, I kind of Easter egged a bunch of stuff in there.
Yeah.
So his the character's name is Asa Lee Perkins.
Okay.
And that's a nod to a lot of those early rockabilly guys. All their middle name was Lee.
Right. Yeah.
Billy Lee Riley. Carl Perkins' middle name is Lee. Carl Lee Perkins. Jerry Lee.
Okay.
Lee.
All right. Yeah.
And I couldn't figure it out until it occurred to me, like, oh, they're all Southern, and it's probably a nod to General Lee.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Or Lee jeans. I'm not sure. They could, one of the other.
Yeah.
They all wear dungarees. So.
Yeah.
So his name is Asa Lee Perkins, and he is joined by his 2 high school buddies and bandmates, and a gentleman he met in the Army named Oscar, who is Hispanic American. And he maintains his friendship with him when they leave the Army. His music, which is called rockabilly, I never call it rock and roll, follows his rise as a rockabilly star, movie star, worldwide sensation. And as his fame grows and he's exposed to the much wider world outside of Jackson, Tennessee, he encounters stuff a lot uglier than the hockey talks that he was used to playing as a teenager.
Yeah.
So drug addiction, which he never really understands, he goes through most of the series, just can't quite figure it out. Why is this happening? I know. I'll go after the guys who were supplying it. Because of his connections to the music industry and Hollywood, the DEA does approach him and they say, look, you're in a perfect situation here. No one's going to suspect you. You're already in the middle of all of this. And we would like you to be essentially an undercover operative.
Yeah.
Just feed us information.
Right.
But he can't do that. He takes the bull by the horn.
Right. Okay.
And he makes himself known.
Yeah.
He exposes his actions. And then then later in his career, he moves to Vegas, which is, at least in my storyline, the center for West Coast mob activity.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, they can't really kill him off because he's the biggest attraction in Vegas. He's making them more money in Vegas than he's costing them with these little drug raids.
Okay.
They also don't want to kill off the biggest star in the universe.
Right.
There's a Kennedy connection kind of tucked into the book there.
Okay.
So there's history too. You know, there's martial arts, there's crime bosses, there's drug addiction, there's rock'em sock'em action, there's brotherly compatibility. romance, and some history. So you come away learning a little something. Little by little, though, his own addictions start to take over. Alcohol, addiction to danger, addiction to women, addiction to fame. And so the title is not only taken from an Elvis song, but it really, I like to pose the question with this: who or what is the devil in disguise? And hopefully by the end of the series, you'll come away with your own impression of who or what that is.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Let me see. I don't know if what. Hold on. I'm gonna see if I can share my screen and we can show you kind of your campaign here. Let's see. Let's see.
Well,
Is that present, Corey?
I would also like to say
Yeah.
that it's
Hit
published under
present.
the banner of Nectar Comics. So if you can also go to the Nectar Comics website
Okay. Hold on.
and pick up not only issue number 1 there, but also Call of the Totem.
Okay. Is that another one of your books?
That is not one of my books, but it is the other book in the stable of
Oh, okay.
books from Nectar Comics, and that's elevator pitch, a Native American fantasy piece.
Okay, cool. So are you is Nectar Comics your company or are they just publishing your work?
I was invited to publish under their banner.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Awesome. All right, I'm going to pull up the Kickstarter so we can check out some of the stuff here, some of the
The founder
talk
of
a
Nectar
little.
Comics is also a Kubert student.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome.
So I
So
try to
we
keep
got
all my connections there.
some bios here, but let me kind of show off some of the artwork because the paneling here is great. I love this. It's kind of like almost like a training montage, which is
That's
something
exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and he did a really good job with that because that was something I did in my book, trying to figure out how to show a montage, and excellent job there. Love this, great backgrounds, great. Just really, it's dynamite. Look at that crowd scene. That is awesome. Yeah. So the artwork is great from what you've talked about, the story and everything, and where it's leading everything. It just sounds like a no-brainer. So definitely, everyone, like I said, there's a link in the description. You definitely want to check out Devil in Disguise.
Now, the
I'm anxious.
book is in black and white.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Anyone watching this, both Corey and I do a lot of black and white stuff. My book's in black and white as well. Josh, our other host, a lot of his books are in black and white. So I don't think you're gonna. Oh, and here's another cool thing. So you've got the variant cover based on Archie. I actually did a variant cover for Betty and Veronica title. So this is like right in my wheelhouse. Yeah, this is cool.
Well, the artist is Fernando Ruiz, who worked for Archie for over 20 years.
Okay, awesome.
And he was actually the artist on Archie versus Predator.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
cool.
cool.
A lot of others. Life with Archie, Death of Archie, I believe was his as well. And I also know him through the Kubert School. He attended I think a year or two after I left. So another guy who has become my instructor, who is my age.
Yeah, well, if nothing else, it sounds like you made, for the year that you were there, it sounded like you made some good connections and everything.
The letterers are all from the Kubert School.
Okay.
The color coverist is from the Kubert School.
Awesome. So had you kept in touch with these guys, or was it just like, hey,
weekly,
I'm back doing, okay, so I
talk to them all the time.
Oh, that's awesome. So it wasn't like out of the blue, like, hey, remember me from Kubert School? I'm doing a comic now.
Well, I've also gone down. I went for a couple of summers for their in-person summer extensive courses.
Oh, cool.
So you can stay for either a week or a month, and so we hang out with them then.
Yeah, I haven't even really. Not that I'm looking to go back to school for comics or anything, but it's like I said, when I was a kid, there was that ad in the back of the comics and stuff. So it's not in my in my purview or whatever. I don't see it. So I'm just kind of, that's why I had to ask if the school was around. I knew they were still around, but sometimes it's just cheaper to do everything online now. So it's cool that they still have like the physical school and everything.
Yeah.
Is it still in kind of the mansion type thing? Is it still the same place, or is it?
When I went, I think that was the first year they were in the school, or it might have been the second or third year they were in the school. They bought the old high school in Dover, New Jersey.
Okay, so that probably, I mean, again, I'm probably going way back. That probably hasn't been the case for a while then. Yeah.
No, the mansion is still the dorms.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And they sold part of the building, the school building, to I think a Walgreens. They wanted to expand their parking lot.
Okay.
So there was this beautiful old auditorium on the back of the school, and they tore that off.
Yeah.
The Kubert sons took it over for a while after Joe passed away.
Uh-huh.
And then they passed it on to Anthony Marquez, who you may know. He worked on the Green Hornet series 2 years ago, and then he was the artist on the Batman Radio Adventures.
Oh, cool.
And he does a lot of covers. It's the artwork reminds me of Darwin Cook. I hope that's a compliment and not a.
Oh, yeah, that. Yeah,
and he's a hell of a nice guy.
When you say Radio Adventures, I mean, just in my mind, I'm thinking like Bruce Timm or Darwin Cook or something like that. Even though I'm not familiar with the title, but that's like what I would imagine that artwork would look like.
Yeah, it fits in with the whole Batman Adventures. Feel.
Yeah. So, is there we're getting close to wrapping up the show? Is there anything about the book or anything that we glossed over or we didn't get to touch on that you wanted to let people know about?
If you want to follow the series a little more closely, you can go to the Facebook page, if anyone still uses that. That is The Devil in Disguise GN for graphic novel.
Okay.
At Facebook.com. Because if you just punch in Devil in Disguise, you'll have like 20 Elvis websites.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure. So Devil in Disguise GN on Facebook.
Yep.
Check out the Facebook group.
You can follow me on Instagram under my name, Robert Radau. There'll be postings there. And updates are posted also through the nectarcomics.com website. So issue 2 is currently running on Kickstarter until next Friday, October 4th. Issue 3 will be, the pre-launch page should be up by mid-October, and the book itself should be available for backing in early November. I try to have the books already at the printer during the launch.
That's awesome. Because, I mean, one thing we always tell people, have the books drawn, at least the artwork done. I mean, there may be some production left, but have the books drawn before you launch your Kickstarter, because so many people don't do that and just takes forever. But to have them actually at the printer, I mean, that's even better. That's awesome. I don't even do that, but yeah, that's awesome.
I have kind of stumbled across some Kickstarters like, hey, issue 2 is out. Like, oh, when was issue 1? 10 months ago.
Yeah, right.
Means anybody who read issue 1 has either already forgotten about it, maybe lost interest, or is not that pumped to get issue number 2 now.
Right, and that's why you're doing the right thing.
I'm trying to do them every 2 months, 5 months.
Yeah, and you're doing the right thing because you're. Well, sorry, I got a dog yapping in the back. but when you run the second Kickstarter, you're also including the first book. So
yeah. So those are both available either in print or as just PDFs.
Yeah. So I back both print copies. So definitely you guys want to do that as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like the dead zone where you get real nervous.
Well, I'm just distracted because my dog is going nuts for some reason. You probably saw a rat. And I'm going to close my door real quick.
So are you So how far into the Kickstarter are you at this point? Is it a 30-day window that you're doing?
Corey, I was just going to say that. The first one, no, I was. The first one ran for a month, and
Uh-huh.
that was, 3.5 weeks of angst, tension, and depression.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
After the second day and before the last 3 days, oh my God! This one's only running for 3 weeks. I don't need all that dead zone. People already
Right.
have
Yeah.
issue number one in their hands.
Right.
I launched the pre-launch page for the Kickstarter probably about a week after people received issue number one. So I'm hoping to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. And what still fresh in their mind and everything, so they're reading it, and there's a way where they can sign up for the next one. That's actually that's something I should make a note of with my stuff. But
And hopefully my book is different enough that it kind of stays in your head anyway, as opposed to yet
yeah,
another a dystopian society of heroes that have been ostracized from the political machine that runs the world, and everybody's
Yeah.
depressed, and the heroes are all murderers, and there's a girl with very large breasts.
yeah, there's a lot of that out there.
Hopefully, my book stands out a little bit. Not that
Yeah,
stuff ain't great,
right,
but nobody's wearing tights in my book.
right. Well, that's what I'm
Except
saying.
that one page you showed where they're in tights, but those are motorcycle pants.
Yeah.
And at some point, Elvis wears a cape. He doesn't fly.
Different kind of a cape, though. But yeah, definitely. Okay, well, I mean, so yeah, definitely check out Devil in Disguise on Kickstarter. There's a link in the description, and then if you can also follow Devil in Disguise on Facebook at Devil in Disguise GN, correct, on Facebook. All right, and yeah, like I said, I backed it. I'm anxious to get my copies and check it out, because at least what I'm hearing about the story, I mean, I just love that kind of. You can always sell me on just a good concept. Rockabilly detective, basically Elvis fighting crime. I mean, I'm okay. Sign me up. So definitely check that out. Link in the description. Thanks for coming on, Robert. And so Corey, what about you? Let's anything you want to promote before we close out the show?
Yeah, jump on my email newsletter. I'm not really posting things on platforms that are feeding AI algorithms, so I'm staying away from most social media stuff. But you'll see me on a couple of them, but not the big ones. So the best way to see it is to get on to CoreyKerr.com/email. I've got this guy is going to be colored and finished here pretty quick, and kind of the process video of doing that will be up. And I got I don't have it over here, but I did most of that on a Wacom Move Ink as a bit of a test. They sent me that to see what I thought, and so I'll be giving my thoughts on whether or not.
I'm anxious to hear about that one. So
yeah, spoiler alert, I prefer it to the iPad. So
okay.
Yeah.
I've heard other people say that too.
yeah, well, the iPad has a battery operated stylus, which gives you a wobble to your line that you either have to smooth on the software, or you just have to deal with it. And anyway, I don't like software doing stuff for me. So the Move Ink doesn't have that. Anyway, if you want to jump in on that, or if you want to read some of the back issues of the book that I'm serializing, that's all over at CoreyKerr.com/email. And you just go to my website without the slash there, and you can see a couple of the newer things that I've done as well.
All right, and as far as me, first we forgot to mention at the top of the show. Obviously, Josh isn't here again, so hopefully he'll be back next week. We've sent out the search party, so hopefully we'll locate Josh and he'll be back again, because he's been gone for 2 or 3 episodes now. So hopefully he'll be back. But other than that, you can find my stuff right here on my YouTube channel, my series Making Comics 101, most comprehensive course on how to make comics anywhere for free. Also, let's see what else. My retro revintifications, taking vintage Gen X memorabilia and figuring out how it works, recreating it, put a unique spin on it. That's what I'm currently doing on YouTube. And then on my website at circworks.com, you can find my comic book Young and the Dead. It's a kids versus zombie adventure story. Just think Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. And then I also have digital products to help you make comics better, faster, more efficiently. Those are all up on my website. And then I've got physical products like prints and things like that, the usual. But I also have something kind of cool under the novelty section of my website, and that is the wax packs that I'm doing, taking all the filling in the gaps of your wax pack collections. If you collect old vintage wax packs from movie trading cards and things, there are a lot of them that they made a lot of them, but there were a few that we didn't get. So I just kind of took it upon myself to make my own version, and they're very authentic to the real thing. So definitely check those out. Other than that, thank you to the chat, everyone in the chat for keeping it going. Even those bots that were like, I don't know what that was all about, but I guess you ignore them and they go away. So
you made $4 off those guys. So
yeah. Well, yeah. Robert, did you want to say one more thing?
Yeah, I meant to say this at the start and then several points.
Yeah.
When I went back to the Kubert School online, yours was one of the first two courses I found on YouTube.
Oh,
and
cool.
I found it incredibly helpful.
Thank you.
And
yeah, I mean,
the template downloads are great. The word balloon stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
I recommend Scott's website. It was a lot of help, easily accessible help for me.
Hey guys, I'm gonna have to close out because my dog is like making some really weird noises. So,
okay.
all right, everyone, take it easy.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. I'm the one that has to close the stream out.